It looks like it. There we go.
We're
We're
actually recording.
recording. Yeah.
Someone could actually be watching this now or as they pop in. Well, should we do the introduction since this is
Yeah,
oh,
let's get underway.
right.
Right.
So I'm going to introduce you. So introducing the newly minted author, James Malbon Harrison. We are actually here for kind of a bit of an interview and just a bit of a discussion about the book and a bit of science. And do you want to introduce the book proper since it is, in fact, your book?
I'd love to. It's been a long time coming. Thank you, David. You've been there with me since the inception of the book. And the story is kind of fun. I became a clinical hypnotist in 2017 and did it for a few years. And then when COVID hit, I took a job working in a dementia care facility for elders with dementia. And I was on a medical team not as a hypnotist, just to be clear, I was on the team as a life enrichment coordinator, which otherwise is known as a recreational therapist. And very quickly, I was glad that I was a hypnotist because all the skills of rapport and helping people change their states became my daily stock and trade. And the medical staff came to rely on me for that. So I found the skills to be useful. And I went to the medical director that I worked under and I said, well, it's your lucky day. I'm a hypnotist. And she said she was agnostic about hypnosis, which tends to be the case with um, psychiatrists. It kind of depends on who they trained with,
Yeah.
um, whether they have had any exposure to it or not. But she said, show me the evidence. And the book really came out of that. I took it seriously. I wanted to know, and I wanted to really know if the field I was working in, that I was trained in, was it real or was it bullshit?
Yeah.
Right.
A
So I
little bit
got
of both. Okay.
what's that?
A little bit of both sometimes.
Maybe, is it what I've come to is that the field that the book in a lot of ways is a love letter to the hypnosis community, because we've kept something alive in spite of really getting hammered by psychology.
Yeah.
So the book starts with a simple premise. If hypnosis is real, there's got to be an evolutionary reason for it, right? Or otherwise, are we just kidding ourselves?
Yeah.
So, what's the evolutionary reason for hypnosis? And I started really thinking about that. And I thought I could ask hypnotists about the field, but really it'd be better off asking the neuroscience community. So I went in that direction. Um, but while I was looking at the research, I was coming across things like, oh, they talk about uh, predictive processing. Well, what does that mean? That sounds a lot like how we work with people, right? We do, anyone that does timeline work thinks in terms of how humans often predict we predict the worst for themselves, myself included, right? We all have those moments, oh, that's not going to happen, or um, and so the neuroscience community is also looking at what they call phenomenological control. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, that sounds like hypnotizability because it is. They will tell you that is their version of the term hypnotizability.
Yeah.
And what that means is roughly, the number of folks across a population who can be hypnotized are pretty stable.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. So, a third of the folks aren't really hypnotizable, and a third fall into the middle, and a third are highly hypnotizable,
Yeah.
more or less. So I started noticing that things that we talk about within the hypnosis world had a corresponding languaging behind it in the neuroscience world. And so the joke I like to say, which is true, is I put hypnosis on the couch, did past life regression on it. What are you, hypnosis? And hypnosis said, look to foraging, look at foraging. I'm like, well, isn't that just cute woodland creatures? What do we got?
If I can interrupt you just for 1 second,
Yeah.
this is why, I've said this, I think I said it to you, but this is my joke. It's not a joke, is that this is the book I've been most excited about since the George R. R. Martin book, Dances with Dragons. And if you're a G.R.R. fan, you're probably wincing because that book has never come out and it never probably will. But I think what it's important, and I hope you feel some credit and validation for this, is you've done something I think no one else has really done. You made the book that I wanted to exist, where you actually looked at hypnosis and didn't just say, let's look at it from within ourselves. Let's actually go out and talk to scientists and research it and see what they're doing and talking about now, not just go and bask in the glory of Milton H. Erickson and Dave Ellman and beyond. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for that because that's something that I've wanted to manifest in the world. And you just said, well, hey, I'll just write it. And just like that, it came out, I'm sure.
I manifested through, like, you manifested through me,
Yeah,
right? I, it, and that's 100% accurate. I feel like I did channel the book,
yeah,
which is not something I'd say without tongue in cheek to the neuroscience community,
yeah,
but it was not easy to write. It's difficult, challenging subject matter, but I really did try to make it understandable to
yeah,
folks. I'm not in it to try to prove that I'm smart or something obnoxious like that.
yeah,
Um, I want to take the terminology that neuroscience in 2026, the way those folks are speaking, and translate that into something where basically all clinicians, whether you're a doctor, a nurse, a hypnotist, or a psychologist, we all sit downstream of the neuroscience, right? So if we're not paying attention to what the neuroscience is saying, then who are we kidding?
yeah,
So it really came from that. And the foraging metaphor was kind of taking Occam's razor to the whole thing, like
yeah,
that notion of the simplest explanation is probably the true one, right? That's that's what Occam's razor has come to be. So I wanted to look for something. And I also realized when I started picking up somewhere, I've got the discovery of the unconscious, which I'm going to pull down from the shelf because it's worth a
absolutely.
mention.
Yeah,
Um, the discovery of the unconscious, the history and evolution of dynamic psychiatry, coming in at a whopping 932 pages. I'm not kidding.
lightning. Yeah.
But I didn't need to read. I read it up to the pages I marked. So this stuff is the early history. And he talks about psychiatry coming from shamanism and hypnosis.
Yeah,
And this is a very respected book in the field. And so I started with we've come a long way. And what happened was in the late 1800s, in the era of the French neuroscientist Jean-Martin Charcot,
mhm,
considered, the father of neurology in France. They used hypnosis on hysterical women, which is a horrible thing to think about what was really going on with that.
yeah,
But that's where medicine was at that time. And they noticed that they could put these folks into two different states. So they called it dipsychism, that there was a two-ness to the psyche. And Freud was a student there, and he took Pierre Janet's ideas about psychism, developed it into ideas about the unconscious. Now there's ideas about the unconscious that go back to antiquity. And I do go into some of that in the book, and it's fun. It's
yeah,
cool to think about, like, oh, the soul and this sort of thing. But what Freud quickly came to was that we wouldn't be able to have a granular idea of what we now call a neural correlate of consciousness. Back then, he did his best top-down conjecture of what was going on in the brain. And
Yeah.
so his formulation made the unconscious or the subconscious a repository of repression and demons and woe be unto you who enter here. And only professional psychologists could dare to work with folks in these states. And it's just wrong. And um, Karl Popper was a well-known philosopher in in Freud's era, a little bit younger than Freud, but he pilloried Freud at the time. But it was Freud's conception was so seductive that it still holds sway in the popular imagination.
Yeah.
So, and in that sense, saying unconscious or subconscious is still a useful term, but it's much more accurate to say we all have interoceptive memory.
Yeah.
We all are predicting our future because it saves energy. And so the book really begins with those principles.
So can I ask you a personal question that I don't think I've actually asked you this in direct terms, but if I could ask you, and you could either answer or pass if you like. How is your understanding of the unconscious mind and or subconscious? How's that changed after writing the book and researching this from when you started in hypnosis? Because I'll give you a minute to think, but because we have this idea, we had the Freudian ideas, and the unconscious mind was this sort of, mysterious realm. Like I think Freud and Jung are the good yin and yang of that conversation.
Right.
And I think we kind of evolved that to be a little more sophisticated with like Erickson, where the unconscious mind, well, before the unconscious mind was this unknowable thing that you had to kind of boss around. And then the Erickson model is essentially that the unconscious is greater than you are. And I think we come to this sort of sense that the unconscious mind is your ally and friend. At least some of us are in the community, but
Yeah.
we don't necessarily know what it is for most hypnotists. How has your understanding of that changed, if I could ask?
I think on a level that like there's a couple levels. So the one that and I come out of Jungian shadow work, right? And I still
Yes.
do it to this day,
Yeah,
like
great.
all the time. I love it. It's a great framework. But what's really going on, quote unquote, under the hood is that you take a creature, you put them in an environment, um, and all the experiential happenings get recorded, but a lot of it we don't need day to day. But if there's, so the neuroscience community uses the word salience, and that just means important. So what's salient to remember um, is the things that your body had to do to protect itself once upon a time.
Yeah,
So, trauma is an easy thing to go to and say, okay, so this person had a traumatic experience involving a blue speedboat, and they see a little toy model of a blue speedboat and they start crying, right? Or like I knew a man who was terrified of cucumbers. I
yeah,
don't know why, but that was the work that we worked on. So probably cucumbers were somehow in the scene when something happened, and it doesn't mean it was a direct uh, thing. It could have just been a bit player, but in his mind, there was, like all of us, there was something salient. Or Rosebud in the Orson Welles Citizen Kane, right?
yes,
They spend the whole movie trying to figure out what this is, and it's just a childhood recollection. Or um, what's the Marcel Proust in the Madeleines, the smell from remembrance of things past, right? So these things are an interoceptive, meaning a inside of the skin memory,
yeah,
and the skin just mediates the outer world, the exteroceptive world of sight and hearing, and the interoceptive world that's been we're making great strides in understanding and measuring interoception for long. And so to a hypnotist, exteroception is VACOG. It's visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory, right? But the interoceptive stuff is the unconscious. And so if you think of your somebody's memories from inside getting fired up to match their prediction of what's going to happen, that's the work we do in hypnosis. So really just saying the unconscious is interoceptive memory, that alone is way more accurate. And to treat that as real. And it's not that the body keeps the score, it's more that the body's the scorecard, the brain keeps the score. So there's a lot of pushback on the Bessel van der Kolk approach right now.
Yeah.
And that's a whole debate and a little bit outside of the scope of the book. The book is concerned with what are the levers that hypnotists have with clients to update their internal associations. And
Yeah.
so I argue that the levers are state change, interoception, what's happening inside the skin, exteroception, sense perception outside of the skin, and predictive processing, otherwise known as memory.
Yeah.
And we have a good, robust tradition in hypnosis of working with those four things. And the neuroscience community is, always advancing those fields, but they're pretty mainstream, solid. Uh, it's not the bleeding edge of neuroscience to talk about any of those things.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to like we sit downstream as clinicians. I want us to have something that's solid, that's an update from this 1950s model that we seem to be stuck with, or
Yeah.
even the NLP stuff from 70s and 80s. Uh,
Yeah.
we just have a lot more uh, research right now.
One thing I love about what you did is you didn't dismiss hypnosis. Like you seem like you still have a love for the history of it, but you also looked at, and I think you have correct me if I'm wrong, I think you have a love and appreciation for the things that are more explainable. I don't want to say woo, I don't like that term as much, but the amazing esoteric things we can do with hypnosis, I think you embrace the spectrum of what's possible while also
Yeah.
being able to look at and admire what neurology says so we know how this kind of works, or at least we have some sense to what we can understand. Here's the results we can do that's amazing, and
Yeah.
then here's the neuroscience and the underneath workings that let us know kind of what's going on. Like you have a nice balance of that, which I think is great and kind of rare, actually.
There's plenty of good stuff that we can rest our work on. And in the, you know, philosophy and science have been riding shotgun since they were the same thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And what philosophers of science have come up with as a term is biological naturalism. And that's basically saying that the brain and the mind and the body are not separate. So that another way to think of it is, the consciousness is all the rage right now. Well, consciousness is what the mind or the brain does. And, in the chapter 2 of the book, I say there's a wedge between the brain and the mind that was put there in the Freudian era, and it's time to remove that wedge.
yeah,
And to say, and another brief way to say it is um, that before thinking there was foraging. So
yeah.
foraging is like proto thinking,
Mhm.
and where does that in the animal kingdom, like that, where that line is a fun thing to debate about. It's like, well, sure seems like mammals are thinking, and what is thinking but comparison of two things and making choices. And could that happen without memory? No, there was a tremendous amount of evolutionary pressure uh, to remember, because if you didn't remember, 50-50 every interaction, you're gonna die, right? Well, death is metabolically expensive. Right.
Yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, it's a hefty cost to.
And and think about early life, like single cell organisms. The era of single cell organisms was an entire, um, I forget, I need to look this up. Is that the Cenozoic era? It's like the earliest life era was single cell,
Yeah,
and it lasted a billion years, you know?
yeah,
So it took a long time. And think about how long a year is for a bacteria or a
yeah,
single cell organism.
yeah,
That's that's a billion zillion generations. So evolution does not have an agenda, but individual creatures absolutely do, and they want to stay alive. So through the accident of mutation, and then anytime there's a favorable, unfavorable mutations tend to take care of themselves, right?
yeah, yeah,
Favorable mutations take a while to work their way through the population. And somewhere I read it's like, oh, roughly 1,000 generations. Like if a creature comes along and has a favorable mutation for that whole species to adapt it,
right.
takes 1,000 go rounds.
Yeah,
Well, that's a long damn time, David Ruby.
yeah. Yes, it is James Malbon Harrison.
Right. So life going from single cell to multi-cell was a huge, huge deal, huge innovation. And it started by single cell organisms eating other single cells, because what else was there to eat?
Yeah,
Um, but going from eating to cooperation, and cooperation is two cells going, oh, we could, there's an advantage to the two-ness aspect of us.
yeah,
And then there's an advantage to being able to develop senses. So that's the middle, the interoception. So it starts with exteroception. What's happening outside of my skin? And I use the snail as a
yes,
throughout the book, because they have the antennae, which are really tentacles, and this tentacle and that tentacle can smell or sense a gradient that smells like sugar over there. Okay, we're going that way. Well, what do you do inside to tell yourself that that way's the good way to go? So there's a debate in neuroscience. It's called the representational debate, and so a representationalist would say the what the brain is a representation of the outside world. And then you have another group of folks, and this is the branch of psychology that I judge is most aligned to hypnosis. These are the ecological psychologists. And this comes from James Gibson, and I talk about him in the book, that he describes the world and the creature's relationship as a series of affordances. So for you and I, the Zoom room affords us the opportunity to communicate over great distance, and the chair where each of us is sitting in affords us the opportunity to sit. But going back far enough, sugar in the environment provides the single cell organism energy to move in the environment, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So affordances to a Gibsonian perspective are um, a direct way to continue uh, the opportunity to live, and no representation is required. And that's a debate for uh, philosophers. But for hypnotists, we can utilize that. We can use the affordance model with people to imagine their environment. What are you going to do now that you have this new power returned to you in your environment, et cetera? Whatever modality you're working on, we've already developed affordance style hypnosis and we're ahead of the curve because I don't see that in the I don't see a talk therapy version of ecological psychology. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
Yeah.
I've missed it, but in the so psychology's had just a lot of fracturing because they're running out of gas, man. And parts of it need to die, like cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm sure there's good parts to it, but from a hypnotist point of view, you think about this thing sitting on top of the spine.
Hmm.
And if you think specifically about this part right up front, the prefrontal cortex, the executive functioning, well, that's all really short neurons. It's a lot of pyramidal neurons where a lot of stuff is in storage, if you will, as opposed to um, the action and switching parts of the midbrain or the physiology parts of the cerebellum. And if we're only running around up in here in the cognitive behavioral part, that's where I know I get stuck in loops there, right? That's
Yeah.
anxiety, people grab their frontal cortex for a reason.
Yeah.
And hypnotists are like, well, let's slow down. We're going to listen to the long nerves. We're going
Yeah.
to listen to the unmyelinated nerves. We're going to see what they have to say. Let's talk to your heart, your belly, your feet, your groin, your arms, your hands, whatever, have it like Richard Hill and the mirroring hands.
Great,
Um,
great technique, by the way.
it's a great technique. I use it all the time with folks. And it like, oh, now I just do whatever variation comes up. I was talking to a guy's feet the other day because in session, his feet are doing this.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, feet have a message. Let's listen. What do you mean my feet have a message? Well, do you see them moving around? It's like, I don't think that's anything. Like, well, maybe there's data to be had if we slow down. And sure enough, his feet were had some kind of balance metaphor for the person I was working with, which was useful in session. So I continue to try to bring it back to biological naturalism, which is to say we don't need metaphysics to use hypnosis. We can use it, but from the Western medicine perspective, that Western medicine does not want metaphysics.
No.
Now, they do have it whether they want it or not, but um, what they want, they talk about biological ontology. They want a step by step procedural method is the gold standard for any intervention, and they've got it on a bunch of things, and they don't have it on a bunch of shit. And the culture is beating them up over it, right? Psychiatry is in a crisis, psychology is in a crisis. And so my writing the book is kind of saying, guys, let's take a time out and let's just say, let's admit that the psychology model is wrong.
Mhm.
And, plenty of it's good, but let's take a breath and go rewind the clock, look at what the neuroscience is currently saying. And the funny thing is, the neuroscience community is saying that we are psychic. They're just saying,
Hold on.
not in the way,
Right.
not in the mediumship kind of way,
Right.
but they're saying it saves energy. The free energy principle and Carl Friston and those researchers are saying it takes less wattage for your body to predict what's coming
Yeah.
and to act as if. And that's expectation. And that's one half of the placebo effect. The other half is bottom up conditioning coming from parts of your brain like your cerebellum
Mhm.
that knows how to do a habit. And what do we work with in hypnosis? We work with habit.
Yeah,
We work with conditioning being kind of that bottom up phenomenon, meeting expectation being the top down.
that was a lot to take in. I'd have thought,
Yeah,
what I
it's a
think is
lot.
good. One thing I think you've done that this is where I'll give you a lot of credit, and is, and again, why not? I'm interviewing you or having to talk about you and your book. But I think a lot of what we've done in hypnosis is taken, I think, like a psychology-based model based on how I think it's been in vogue to beat up on Freud a lot over the years, but I think we've taken what Freud's done and we kind of beaten him up. Like we've looked at how psychology's advanced and we built off of Cahal and not Charcot and Freud and Jung, and then with hypnosis we built off that with again like Erickson's probably the big figure, but we haven't actually returned to source, so to speak, and done what you've done, which is say, well, instead of drawing on the misperceptions of Freud and his, Jung and their descendants, well, let's kind of go back to see, well, psychology and neurology, like, what do they believe now? Like, what's the science actually support now? And how do
Yeah.
we build or reframe hypnosis from that? And I think you've done
And
that.
Cajal, for folks that don't know, was a Spanish neuroscientist named Santiago Ramon y Cajal. He's so famous in Spain that he's on the money.
Yeah,
And he's a direct descendant of Darwin. He won the Nobel Prize like in the 1920s or 30s, a long time ago. He
yeah,
literally used a microscope to draw uh, neurology. And so I go back to him and say, what if Cajal was right?
yeah,
Um, he had kind of he had small battles with Freud, and he died young, so we didn't get to explore what he would have done. But he really wanted to take Freud on, and
yeah,
his last journals show that, and I talk about that in the book. But it's a supposition that you got neurons up here, and Cajal drew the neurons going down into the body,
yeah,
and in a way, neurons is neurons, right? They do specialize throughout the body. We have an incredible taxonomy of neurons, and heart neurons are different from thalamus neurons, different from pyramidal neurons, etc. All throughout, there's an incredible variety, and he really started to show that. I'm going to hold up. This is how I roll as a Gen X guy using
hey,
Zoom.
yes.
This is a Cajal drawing.
Yeah. And the
From,
art you've included in the book is amazing. Like it's really beautiful. And it's stuff that I would have been oblivious to had I not come across you in your book, James. Available
well,
now on Amazon, folks.
I would have been oblivious to it if I hadn't come across Brain Architecture
Yeah.
by Larry Swanson, and the subtitle is Understanding the Basic Brain. And I would say to any hypnotist out there, do yourself a favor. This book is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a really great read on what's going on in the neuroscience, and it's got fun draw. So I've got this fantastic
Yeah.
drawing. So there's two drawings from this book that I put, and I so that's Common Sense Man. We'll get to him in a second. He's lovely. So I do want to talk about him, but on the Zoom slide, this is sorry, screen is backwards to me. That's why I'm moving around.
Yeah. It's fine on mine. I see it.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So this is a basically early wiring diagram drawn by Santiago Ramon y Cajal through a crap ass microscope in the like 1910s or thereabouts. And
Yeah.
so up top, you've got cortex, and then you got neurons going down into the spinal cord, going out to the skin and out to the senses and reporting back. And like this was under our nose the whole time.
Yeah.
So the book really starts with that. And then this is an idea from our old friend Aristotle. And this drawing was done in the 1500s, but it's an Aristotelian idea. So we've all heard of the idea common sense.
Yes, yes.
And now it's come to mean like, oh, that's just common sense. Everybody should have common sense. Well, the way it was framed, as Aristotle described it, it's the common sense is the binding of the special senses. And the special senses are smell and taste and sight and touch and hearing, right?
Hmm.
Facog by another name.
Yeah.
And they mix here in the brain. So they come in, and the special senses become the common senses because they mix in the first chamber. Um, has a great name like the um, fancy. The first ventricle, one finds fancy and imagination. And then the passage between these chambers is the vermis, and there's a valve that connects them. And in the next chamber is I think judgment. And then finally at the back is memory. Well, how cool is that? So first is this fanciful aspect. Well, the common name for that now would be the imagination.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the argument I make is the imagination is memory without a timestamp, so it's unbound. So it's that plastic thing. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, the notion of the imagination was it's superfluous. No one knows what it is or why we have it.
Yeah.
Um, and like that's silly. That would be of course there's a reason, right?
Yeah.
The, or there's an evolutionary driver behind it, and it's comparison, right? So I
Yeah.
can imagine, oh, if I eat that berry, I'm going to have a bad day. And if I try to pet that lion, I'm going to have a bad day.
Right.
If I try to pet that polar bear, I'm going to have a bad day, right? Um,
Your imagination has a lot of like a death and you know, negative outcomes. But yeah,
right?
what are the good imaginings, James, where you don't get
It's
eaten by some?
saves it saves your energy if you
Yeah.
get to live, right? So the imagination absolutely has a very direct purpose in that sense.
Yeah.
And that's the argument I work with. And so the reason hypnosis is so effective, it's a
Hmm.
way to reawaken our foraging instincts,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So foraging goes dormant because we come up with a solution that's good enough. Oh, if I drink alcohol, I don't have to I don't have to feel that pain.
Yeah.
Okay, good enough. I'll just keep drinking. Good enough. Oh, I'm habituated to it. Oh, shit. Oh, now it's causing problems. Oh, I have to feel the feelings that I stopped feeling. Oh, okay, great. I
Not a lot
mean,
of
that's a
optimism in
lot
this
of the work that
conversation.
I do with folks is like, yep, I'm gonna, my job is to help you make it safe enough to feel whatever feelings that you stop feeling.
Yeah.
Um, and the neuroscience really supports that. So, what we call in the hypnosis community, the meta pattern, the John Overdurf
Yeah.
associate, collapse.
Yes. I'm familiar.
Well,
Yes.
how cool was it? I found that as a term um, in this giant tome. So, I'm just pulling them off the shelf.
Yeah. I might as well.
This is not a normal sized book. This is as big as my head, and it weighs a ton. And know the name of Dr. Stephen Grossberg. Why the man does not have a Nobel Prize is astonishing. Like he should have had one decades ago, really. And the poor guy, I think he's hanging on for dear life because he expects to be getting one at any minute. But so much of AI and many, 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 many other things are this dude. And what I realize is like what we in the hypnosis community call the meta pattern. he calls it adaptive resonance.
Yeah.
So we continually cycle between states, right? It makes
Yeah.
sense. And that's where research, so, folks in a pop sense throw around the term, uh, oh, that guy's dissociated. It's like, well, the news flash is we all associate and dissociate continually, or we couldn't live,
Yeah.
right? You have to be able to do that to get out of bed and to go into a task state and then go into a resting state and
Yeah.
then switch task states. And then, okay, I need rest and recovery time. Well, that's adaptive resonance at work, effectively.
And that's one thing I really hope comes out of this is that we're able to kind of find some shared understanding and some common vernacular, so
Yeah.
we can say that. And I love the meta pattern. John Overdorf is one of my all-time favorites. He's great.
Yeah. Very creative.
Yeah, very nice guy actually too. Pretty good guitarist. Come to think of it.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he
Oh,
actually is. Yeah. See, I bring something to this conversation. But I think being able to, as you grab your six string on the back, and Ivanya's good, good brand. But it's nice to be able to like have the terms we use, but also relate that to something like it's not just the meta pattern. It's related to this scientific term and this phenomenon that we can then
it's
study.
rooted in something. It's
Yeah,
grounded, as they say. Yeah.
there's something to it. And to kind of go back to what you said earlier, I think what doctors that I've talked to, you talk to the scientific types, but when I talk to medical staff, they want proof and they want something that's based on something, not just things we make up out of nowhere. So being able to
Yeah.
tie it to, and again, we had to make terms, but I think NLP gets a bit of a bad rap for making up things, making up words, and it's like, well, that word describes something that already exists. Can we go back and find the actual term that scientists and doctors use? So we're not talking different languages, we're talking the same thing, and there's actually something that's, relevant that it's
Yeah.
based on.
The neuroscience community did not like that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
So they
believe.
wrote it off.
Yeah.
Um, now, so, we'll see where all this shakes out. I'm on the Brain Inspired podcast drops tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
And that is so it's a niche podcast by Paul Middlebrooks, who is a neuroscientist at Carnegie Mellon. And I'd been in touch with him for years while I was working on the book. And I fully expected to get shot down or told, go away.
Yeah.
But enough neuroscientists talked to me that I was able to give my best shot at the book and finally finished the book and was on his show. Um, we recorded it, I don't know, a week or two ago. It's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, fingers crossed, like I'm asking the neuroscience community for their help, that I want to get this right. That's
Yeah.
my goal. And, if I got something wrong, let me know so I can update things. But he was very kind and he said that what I've done feels like a good, useful synthesis.
Yeah.
And my former medical director is saying the same thing. And then anesthesiologist that I've been in touch with is saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm getting good, and like the early feedback is good.
Excellent.
We'll see, right? I mean, will it do anything in the world or not? That's out of my hands now. I mean, I'm going to keep doing things like this to get the word out,
Yeah, of course.
but you know, I want to offer a blessing to any hypnotist out there who stuck their neck out, saw something that they believed in, came up with a protocol or an approach and named it and took arrows from the medical world and they trusted their intuition, because that's what we do. And this is called moving the demarcation line.
Yeah.
So the history of science is about what is considered science and what's considered pseudoscience. right?
Yep. Yeah.
That there's a line between these things. And that's Karl Popper. Again, I talk about him in the book a lot because he describes that as the demarcation line. And I say we're picking it up and we're moving it over a few
Yeah.
feet. And that's what science does. And what the hypnotists have done is notice like, hmm, there's something different about the way we work than the way the psychologists or the talk therapists are working. And we're willing to get branded as woo, self included. Like, I'm pretty woo on a personal level as a hypnotist, as a practitioner from what I see with folks, partly because people want to go there, but also because I just go there with people. Like,
Yeah.
if I could tell you about the session I did that ended an hour before this call, it was pretty far out there.
Yeah.
Um, but it gave the person, it felt real for what they needed. And I'm letting them, there's the pace and lead aspect of the work.
Hmm.
But when it comes to the medical community, I'm saying it's not the woo side. We don't need it in order to be justified in what we're doing. So, yes, hypnosis can be done without a shred of woo, and it can be biologically grounded and helpful to the folks we're working with. And the chapter on placebo does a deep dive into the whys of that.
Yeah. Placebo is a fascinating topic that I think has been villainized because you had to beat it to get stuff published or get stuff,
It's the gold standard,
yeah.
you
But
know,
but
right?
to touching your point too, and if you have a point about placebo, I don't want to cut that off.
No,
Um,
no.
but
You, yeah,
what I've seen is that people, if you show doctors and medical people the evidence, they're much more open to hypnosis. And what I've noticed is actually for fun, because I have great fun on a Friday night, I like to look at journals and see what there is about it. Like it's great fun.
that's a party. Yeah, we party in the same way, right?
Right. But it's fascinating seeing what they're doing with hypnosis and how that's evolving, how it's not just this fringe thing, it's being incorporated into, EBT and therapeutic modalities, and they're combining things and there's studies showing what hypnosis can do on its own. And my argument that hypnosis is not placebo is that it actually beats placebo and that they're related. That's
Right,
the
right.
topic. But the
Yeah.
fact it's becoming merged where you can look up articles and see how it's being incorporated into approaches, it's not just being held at arm's distance as much anymore. Or at least, like again, for a while it wasn't. Like, it was mainstream medicine for a while, and then we had anesthesia and you didn't die from surgery, you know. But
Right.
it's
I mean, why not? Absolutely use anesthesia. I think that's great.
yeah. But you can
Uh,
also use hypnosis to help you need less of it, or someone's gonna die because they can't handle,
right. Or
anesthesia.
the recovery from and chronic pain's a real crisis in the world,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's my leading edge as a practitioner, that I will work with folks with chronic pain
Yes.
and in the attempt to untangle the physiological component of pain from the emotional affective component
Yeah,
and from the predictive component, right? A lot of times it like
very
you know,
much.
no one wants to be told, oh, it's all in their head. And so and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But there is some, it's like have grace and humility and mercy that, yes, in a way, if there's chronic pain, there absolutely is a piece of it that is in the head. It's a prediction that could use an updating is usually it. The
Yeah.
bad thing happened before. You're priming yourself. I'm priming myself. You're like we all prime ourselves to be ready
Yeah.
because that's a great way to survive.
Absolutely.
You don't want to walk down the street without some survival skills ready to fire off.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So it's a necessary part. It's something that evolved in us that's deep, and it can use a little help on the updating thing because we get habituated to our own way of predicting the world,
Yeah.
and that
Agreed.
can often become identity. And once it becomes identity, it really needs the help of a hypnotist because we're very
Yeah.
much trained in identity update work. Um, oh, I have cancer, I have this or that. It's like, no, it's visiting and passing through.
Yeah.
Don't take ownership of it. I don't even like to say it as a demo
Yeah.
thing. It's like, no, I don't have that. My cells are doing what they need to do, and they're not over. Uh, you know, Calm down, cells. No rambunctious action today. Just be in the present. So
Yeah. Nice metaphor.
yeah, notice what's true. Um, you know, Attack things when needed and stand down when you can. Like that's the basis of healing. Healing is not some extraordinary metaphysical thing. It's perfectly natural. It's the normal thing. The body knows how to do it quite well.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's getting the person back on a healing footing by having them not predict in the way that they're used to predicting. Like, how will you feel when you don't predict that pain's going to be there because you're used to it or you're habituated to it or your identity's built around the pain?
Yeah.
Like, that can be scary, but it's a way to give somebody their life back. And, hypnotists have been doing this, you know,
Wow. Hundreds of years.
right?
One of my favorite lines related to pain is from K.F. Thompson, and I say this one a lot. I may have said it to you, James. You may be sick of hearing it, but I'm going to finish this story.
Say it. Say it,
Uh,
but preach it, David Ruby.
but she had a line that once everything that can be done and should be done has been done, there's no need for that pain to exist, which
Love
I
it.
which I find beautiful because one, it does presuppose that that pain isn't it's not my pain, it's that pain, but that
Yeah,
it serves a purpose. And I think you're right. But when people say that, well, it's all in your head, James, they say that dismissive. It's like it's not real.
right.
But if you have some, if you're experiencing pain, whether it's in your head or not, and of course it's all being processed by your brain, so it's all in your head, or if it's like emotional pain, it's no less real. It's no less damaging than
Right.
if it's like a broken arm or something. So I think it's wrong to be dismissive, but also if it's in your head, then that's amazing because it means your brain can, if it can create pain, what else
Yeah.
can it do when you start to use it and you allow it to let go of that thing that's processing in a way that's not serving you?
Once you're paying attention to it and the message is understood and received,
Yes.
who else can you be in this moment now?
You're pretty good, James.
I do it for a living. And
Yes.
then I do it at night, right? I do this because I run a lot of men's open circles
And hell, you wrote the book on mental
as well.
foraging and the new model of hypnosis. I'm sorry, no, mental foraging and the evolution of memory. Said the name wrong. But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, that's a great way to frame it. And I think it does make it more fluid and less your identity is, that someone, that they have cancer and they have pain, as opposed to there's something the body's doing that's awry. We're going to help you to be as, capable of fixing it. And that sensation you've been experiencing, well, maybe you can let that go because it doesn't serve you. I think
Yeah.
it lets us well, one, I think it's true that, if there's something like pain or discomfort, once you've acknowledged it and it's done its job, the old smoke alarm analogy they got from Old Pain to Go,
Right.
Stephen Blake. Like
Did you do that training?
I was on a I didn't do the full training. He taught it to me like in this is so long ago. It was on Skype, I think, back in the day. He taught me some of it. So uh, wherever you're watching, Stephen, I stole the I credit it, but I stole the metaphor of the smoke detectors. I think that was actually really brilliant.
That's part of it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And um, I never got to meet Stephen Blake, unfortunately, and he recently passed. But
yeah.
I'm working closely with Peter, his stepson, who's the business
Oh,
manager, because we're going through you know, we're we're doing a textual review.
excellent.
we haven't,
Yeah,
we haven't
Stephen's
started
a
yet,
nice.
but they're wonderful folks. his modality that he came up with squares with the neuroscience in my book,
Yeah.
the prediction aspect of pain. Um, so I'm keen to keep working with them. And then I just was on a Zoom call this morning with Claire Delavar in Edinburgh, and she's working on a new hypnosis certification program that'll be up to past medical muster in the UK.
Cool.
And she's using my book as a textbook, a core text for her training.
So,
And
folks, the book's not even been out for 24 hours and already it's being used as a textbook. That's pretty impressive.
it's already being used, it will be used as a textbook, which is
Yeah.
really cool. Janish Patel in New Zealand wants to translate it into Hindi.
Yeah, I read
So
that. That's
that,
wild.
like, okay. And it just got launched a few hours ago.
Well, I
So
think that means you got to do the audio version in Hindi as well. I think that's your next
I
goal.
am working on I met with the audio actor recorder guy today,
Oh,
and
cool.
it'll be out in by mid-July, certainly in time for Hypnothoughts.
Excellent.
So I'm very like there's like things are starting to happen. The
Yeah.
big thing is what happens with brain inspired podcasts tomorrow,
Yeah.
because it's one thing for me to preach to our choir of fellow hypnotists, because it is a rallying cry per se
Yeah.
that it's time for us to be on medical teams,
Yeah. I
for
think so.
that option to be there, with good ethics and training and all that goes with it. That the evidence is overwhelming,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work all the time for all the people. But what I learned working in the medical world, I mean, I was charting in Epic and doing, assessments of people
Yeah.
alongside the doctors and the nurses, and I found that they were very kind to involve my opinion of somebody, because I got to spend a lot of time with our folks. There's plenty of evidence. We have a ton of overlap with occupational therapy. And occupational therapy is fascinating as a field.
Yeah.
They came up with a term called functional cognition, and that's super useful. And there's a scale of functional cognition. So, functional cognition would be, you know, how well are you able to perform actions in your environment, right? They call it the activities of daily living in the lingo of a occupational
Yeah.
therapist. So, can this person grasp a glass and drink water, or do they need a straw or a sip cup, or do they need somebody to uh, give them water? Can they brush teeth on their own, or do they need cueing? Right. So, how much of what's another name for cueing? What do we call cueing, David? This is a pop quiz in the
This,
hypnosis world.
this is priming.
Priming,
Yeah.
or what's another name for priming?
I got the answer at the first time, James. Don't do this to
You,
me.
you did great. I think, is it an Ericksonian term, elicitation?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Elicitation and utilization. Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
occupational therapists use that all the time. So they would watch me work and be like, damn, because I could get our folks up and dancing. We had so Parkinson's, a way to think of that in a functional way is the person is, uh, they've run out of dopamine. They're not producing dopamine in a normal way. But guess what? Through mirror neurons, you can get somebody's dopamine going. So I had a woman that loved the song Love Shack. And so I would play that during bingo. And then I would look at her and point, and I would do this. And the mirror neurons are firing up. Well, after 30 seconds, the Love Shack is a little old place where we can get together. And she's up and she's doing this song, and it's a 6-minute song, and the other caregivers would come by and be like, holy shit, you got her dancing. It's like, yeah, but once she's primed, and it got to where like I could just look at her and she would start
Yeah.
because I'm a good hypnotist. So I could prime, cue, and elicit the behavior um, that was hard for her to do on her own. And a lot of that's the social side of hypnosis that Spanos. You turned me on to Nick Spanos.
Well,
That
yeah.
he
Don't need to
got that.
brag, yes.
You turned me on to a lot of things. I mean, I want folks to know that um, I literally went through an editing stage I called the Ruby edit, and we went back and forth, and that was
It was a
many,
dark time.
many edits before the final edits. So that was like I would call it a developmental edit,
Yeah.
where I'm still working through the ideas. So, um, the book finally has a final shape to it, but my God, it took a long time. And I do
Yeah.
want it to be easy enough to read, considering its difficult subject matter. So the tortoise and the hare make an appearance. There's creatures and critters and mystical beings and wizards. If it's a hypnosis book, my feeling was there needs to be wizards, right? But I have
I
to
love
talk. Yeah,
I love how it ended up being a textbook that still has your personality and your
yeah,
thumbprints are all over, which I think is a great blend.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I was the one that got to write it.
you
So like
did.
I
I got
need
to help for
for
you.
this
So
to be fun, right? Yeah, yeah. You're really my first audience. So maybe mentally my first audience was my medical director, but I wasn't actually talking to her. I was actually talking to you. And, early on, like, oh shit, I got to wrestle with state and non-state theories of hypnosis.
we had
Oh,
great
shit.
conversations about that. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, that was important because it it forced me to treat it seriously and to learn about it and hopefully to have done it some modicum of justice as best as I could. And it's done, right? So now
Yeah.
other people get to judge that. And I'm going to do it. Oh, we're doing good for time. I'm celebrating tonight by taking my son out to dinner.
Wonderful.
So I'm very excited. I live in Portland. He's visiting. He lives out in Pendleton now, but we're going to a New Jersey Italian restaurant down the street from me with a poster of Saint Danny DeVito on the wall. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So,
I hope there's like some Facebook pictures.
hmm.
I actually wanted to ask you a couple things. First of all, did you come up with the foraging analogy for hypnosis? Like, was that you, or did you get that from somewhere else?
I got that from hypnosis.
Go on.
That
Do
was the
tell.
past life. I did the past life regression on hypnosis, and it said, James, look to foraging. And that's when early in the book, the book chapter or heading is called Bingo All the Time. So
Yes.
I'm working with these folks that, in spite of my other efforts to do other activities in the facility I was in, the thing that drew people out was bingo. And I'm like, why the hell this game? Like, what did I do? Poor me. I'm calling bingo for a living. The world is absurd, you know.
That's true. It is.
But it's so fun. Like, okay, and so I have to reframe this. I get to call bingo for a living. How fun is that? It turns out it's super fun. So the game involves no skill at all. So there's no cognitive load in that sense. And I would try other games like Wheel of Fortune, of course. Well, Wheel of Fortune can be very, very difficult if you have any memory recall type of dementia issues, right?
Yeah.
So I would have to do a tremendous amount of queuing to make Wheel of Fortune work. And you've got a spectrum like this guy's really good at Wheel of Fortune because he's pretty cognitively intact compared to these folks.
Yeah.
So that means they're going to lose a lot and he's going to win. Well, that's no fun.
No.
So bingo's very egalitarian. Um, and I could do this with my thumb and make sure that Rigoberta got a win that day, right? Or make sure that Aristotle got a win that day. These names are not names of actual people.
Like
You
what an esoteric group of people you're working with. Yeah,
know,
that's
just for HIPAA's sake, I won't, use
yeah.
names of anyone that I worked with. But I could make sure somebody got a win. And so, so I would call a number. So, I-23, and they go into saccades. So their eyes start moving. They're looking for the number. If they don't hit it, they don't hit it. But if they have it, they get excited. The hand reaches for a chip and they put the chip down and they go, "Ooh, I got two in a row. This is a hot row," or bingo, and they call bingo. And, everyone, when you call bingo, everyone's like excited. So it's a group excitement thing. They know they're going to get chocolate. Folks with dementia can still learn, newsflash, right? So they learn my name and they learn that James has chocolate. And if I can corner him, I will get chocolate, you know? So I would make myself cornerable, or I'd come to them. But I noticed that over and over, like, think of when you as a human go from one room to another and your mind gets wiped. Why did I walk to the kitchen? I can't remember. Why did I walk to the dining room or this or that room? We all do that because we've changed our environment and we're looking for new environmental cues to stay safe.
Yeah.
So when folks with dementia, so I would sit in the dining room all day. Like that was ground zero. I want to make myself available for whatever's happening. So someone walks in and they pause at the threshold and instantly, why am I here? The head starts looking around. So I would see them and make a big gesture, wave them over, sit by me. So I wouldn't have to say a word. I would just wave at them, sit here, and then I'd taken care of the next five physiological things that they needed to do to get from over there to negotiate around so and so and to make it to a friendly, safe face that they knew.
Yeah.
So folks with dementia can absolutely learn. Um, and then dementia comes in such a wide variety of types. But the shorthand is it's impacts your ability to recall. Um, and on any given day, depending on what you've eaten, you might have better or worse recall.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that way. So I gained a lot of to go back to answering your question. So I kept noticing that foraging has a lot of explanatory power. And we tend to think of it as cute woodland creatures foraging for a meal, but it's valence. It's going towards this and away from that, right?
Yeah.
It's fight or flight. It's, all the really basic stuff that the nervous system does goes back to the pressure to make a decision. And decision goes better with memory. And so I don't know how memory first happened, but the book traces what I call the foraging framework.
Mhm.
And in the hypnosis world, we talk about Hebbian learning, Hebbian plasticity. So
Yeah.
Donald Hebb was the neuroscientist in the 1940s who, now the term is neurons that fire together, wire together.
Yep.
And that comes from Donald Hebb. He studied that and discovered, and then another neuroscientist, Carla Schatz, gave it that nice moniker, neurons that fire together, wire together. And that's become the standard of how we talk about memory ever since. Now we know there's more to memory than that, but that idea that this neuron with a kind of ganglion at the neural cleft, of potential ways to connect to the next neuron. And
Yep.
then this, in the neural cleft or the synapse is where the magic happens. Um, Now there's more and more interesting research on the neural nucleus also having memory. It's like
Hmm.
that opens up a lot. Um,
Yeah.
that's a whole other discussion.
That's the second book, right?
Second book will be applied mental foraging. So first book. By the way, here, let's see. Do I have a copy? So I don't even. So it came out today. This is the most current copy I have. It's a 3-ring binder version of it.
Look at
And I've ordered my copies, and um, the author proofs get here tomorrow. So I'm excited. And then the actual copies I'll get on Saturday.
that.
Uh,
Awesome.
but
Yeah.
yeah, the ebook is coming right on the heels of it. Hardcover on the heels and audiobook on the heels. So that's a lot of talking.
Can I pivot to one, at least one more
Yeah,
question?
absolutely.
What, in your idealistic and your dreams, the wildest dreams, where do you envision going with this as far as any like future endeavors or trainings or protocols? Like, what do you actually want to do with this?
That's a great question. And I don't have the exact thing lined up, but I know I want to teach. I want the book to be a magic carpet where I get to follow it around the world.
Wonderful.
I'd like
Maybe
to,
you go to Scotland, bring me with you, by the way.
yeah, I'll bring a copy.
No,
Um,
no, bring me to Scotland with you if you go to
oh yeah,
Scotland.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're on my short list, like you are an ambassador. And I think my first job is really in the thinking of folks that are willing to put the time into reading it as you all are like even the folks watching this.
Yeah,
It's very early, so I want to form an allegiance of ambassadors that get it, that understand what I'm trying to do with the book, because there is a I don't I'm a mild-mannered nice guy who loves people, but I'm a community builder, and this is like there's a revolutionary aspect to the book where I do want it to update or overthrow the old regime
yeah.
and update the way things are done, um, not for its own sake, but I want the book to be judged whether it's accurate or not enough for us to truly update the model so that we are running alongside, we're working under a medical umbrella. That's what I want. That's
Having
the
read,
big goal is we are under the umbrella of medicine in a good way. Whether we're still independent or certification has to change and all that. I think it does. That's showbiz. I think we have to be adults about that. Um, it's the Wild West right now. Um, do we need to be like, how will this update training and all that? I don't know yet. I know that, Claire is working on stuff in the UK, and I want to join forces with her. Do I do my own thing? I'm just not sure yet. Like, will there be demand for what I've put out? Will I get pitchforks? And, you know, like, I don't know. I don't think I'll get pitchforks, maybe from psychology, but pitchforks from psychology are fine. Like I will take it. I'd rather cooperate with people and say we know enough now. Let's update things in a mature way. But there this is mixing it up. But I'm almost 60, and this was me shooting my shot and hopefully getting it right and paying attention, not doing it from an ego aggrandizement place, but from a place of updating the field. And if I my I hope my aim is true,
yeah.
right?
Can I
That
speak to that for a second?
Yeah,
I've actually read this thing in various iterations over the years now. Um, I think you did a great job, and that's not to fluff you up.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you're a nice guy, and I'd be nice to you, but I don't say that just to be like a, supportive. I think you did more than take your shot. Like you did more than like, I hope this is good. You actually did the legwork to prove that there's something to it. I think you've, at the risk of
And it
saying,
recognizes for others to say that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'll say it. It's a damn good book, and you did a hell of a lot of good work. And it's not just like you ranting; it's you basing it on something you went out and talked to people that most hypnotists don't even know exist, much less actually communicate with. So
Yeah.
I think that,
And I got lucky that they would talk to me. You know,
well, you also put in the work, and you're approachable enough where how could they not?
I
So
worked on rapport, right? That's pretty central to what we do. So,
I like to think so.
yeah,
I think that this is something that has. I think if you're just watching this book and this the knowledge within, it's by the book. It's really good. But I think it gives us a chance to not just view medical professionals and scientists as adversaries, which we often do as a field, to our discredit and to theirs. It gives
yeah,
us a chance to like, actually. I don't know if we have to be entirely under medical. I think it gives us a chance to work with them, and I think there should be ways to work in collaboration with the medical and scientific folks. And this helps us to update the field in a way that hasn't been done since probably the 50s or more.
yeah.
Most of us are still, and I love Erickson and Ellman and others in the field, but a lot of us are still either like the Ellman and Erickson camp, and they've both been gone for decades now. This lets us update the field. It lets us like look at what the medical community
And the
says.
connective tissue, it has to be said, is Ernest Rossi.
Yeah, Rossi
Just,
deserves.
just to put that in there. Yeah,
Yeah, we could be here all day, but yeah, no, Rossi I think did a great job of like taking. He worked with Erickson pretty hand in hand,
yeah.
and he did a lot of cool scientific stuff. Most I know from the book you did with Richard Hill. I saw you got to interview Richard, or vice versa, which I
Right. Which I'm super grateful for
yeah,
because
Richard
that's
is a super nice guy. Can we all
that.
agree Richard's super great?
Yeah. I mean, that's the legacy that I
Yeah,
feel aligned with,
yes,
and try to work to a high standard.
yeah.
Oh my God. Phew. Yeah.
Well, but you did. I think you worked at a very high standard. I think you did a lot to look from both worlds and combine it in a way that makes sense. So I
Yeah.
think that if there's ever to be revolution, I think psychology and the medical community and hypnotists should all embrace this book. And not just because I think you're a nice guy, but you are, but because it's a good book that stands on its own and you've done a hell of a lot of stuff to justify it and back up what you're saying. That's pretty admirable.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah.
And I ask for folks that are the early listeners of this um, to be in touch. That I need help getting the word out. Like it's not gonna, like in a lot of ways, I would say you are the first follower, and that is so important. Like there's that dance video that was going around on there's have you ever see that one, the first follower,
Yeah.
that made
Yeah.
the rounds in social
Yeah.
media for years, where the guy dancing at the festival, and one guy dancing at a festival is crazy,
Yeah.
but then the first follower comes along and starts dancing, and
It's
after a
movement.
few minutes it's a movement,
Yeah.
and I'm a bit of a rallier. There's a like I do that in other work that I do. It's I can get things going, and in order to do that, we got to start the momentum. So we're starting the momentum here, and
Yeah.
anyone watching this is part of that early part of that. So I take that seriously and with a lot of grace and humility. Um, that it's not about me, it's about the field. And by plugging into that energetically, I was able to keep my ass in the seat for 6 years to do a really difficult thing
Yeah.
uh, in an easy way. And still difficult though. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm going
It's
to
a sacrifice.
celebrate with some chicken piccata tonight, or you
Yeah.
know, chicken parmesan with my son.
Well, I can let you wrap up so you can go and enjoy some nice Italian food.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, David. Thank you for the journey.
Yeah,
Have you bought a copy yet?
not yet. I was actually going to ask you where I can get like a. This might be cheesy, but it's like I want the physical version. I'd love to have your little signature at some point.
So I bought one of, those squeezy things that emboss, book embosser. I bought a
Okay,
book embosser that says something like mental foraging, James Harrison, and I bought the gold foil stickers.
very nice.
So, yeah, you are coming to Hypnothoughts, right?
I don't think so this year.
I don't think so. Okay. We
If
might
I
have
don't,
to send one in the mail or something.
yeah, I
Um,
can pay for a stamp or two. Yeah,
right. That could be, buy it, read it, send it to me. I will happily, uh, very happy. That's a fun thing. Like
yeah,
as an author, wow, I get to sign a book for somebody. That's very
yeah.
meaningful. Yeah.
If you, I can either buy it from you directly or I can get it from Amazon and mail it to you or something. I'm happy to do whatever is best for
Buy
you.
it from Amazon as at the early stage of this, so that it's part of sales. Like I
Yeah,
could, do that. That's the most helpful, I would say, to anyone who's actually listening. Just buy it from. I mean, I had to bite the bullet. I'm doing it's self-published, but you'll
yeah,
see it tried to have a very high standard, high production values for it. Um,
yeah. I'd say that mission accomplished there.
and buy it there. Please give it a review on Amazon and Goodreads. And we're working on getting it on draft to digital over the next few days as well, and Barnes and Noble, and in libraries. And so there, I have a author coach I'm working with. Thank God, there's so much to it. Um, it's a launch, but it ain't like launching a rocket.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different kind of launch. All right,
Yeah.
David. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for the talk. I appreciate it, and I'm glad we got the live stream technical stuff worked out.
Yeah.
Any parting
Thank you
thoughts,
for
Brian?
posting it, and thanks to anyone who listens.
Yeah, and I'll share it too and make sure they see the replay.
Wonderful. All
All
right,
right.
buddy. Thank
Take
you.
care.